are solid state and true timber, as well as
Noticeable to me that when I use a 4K mouse, it just feels more responsive.
you can go as fast as you can without trying to go on. Hey guys, Yifang here. I've just returned from an extended time overseas and this is our first video back. So big shout out to Daniel from Addice and EspTiger for sending me an entire box of EspTiger stuff last year, and also apologies for how long this review has been delayed. So in this video, we're looking at 5 out of the 9 pads I was sent. This time the series is the ShanHai series. The remainder, the other 4 pads, will be in the next video, and without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So I usually do a quick summary of each video and product, but this time there won't be one as there are too many products to make it a quick summary. So instead, each section dedicated to the pad will be somewhat of a brief summary, and I'll leave comparisons for you guys to ask in the comments below or join the Discord linked in the description and ask me there. So the ShanHai series of the EspTiger pads are a new EspTiger lineup that released sometime in 2023. There's a total of 5 different pads. Now each one is also available in black or pink. I'm not sure if there are differences between the colors, but I would imagine that not to be the case, or else they wouldn't be the same pad anymore. In this case, we have 4 black and 1 in pink, wink wink.
Jesus Christ.
Now the packaging of the pad feels very premium. I don't know why they went so hard on it, but nonetheless, I am a huge fan of this matte black cardboard box and the reflective wrap that goes around it as well. The pad retails for $45 US on Amazon USA from what I could find, and otherwise it's on Metkeys for $55 US. The pads measure 480 by 400 by 4mm thick. Now speaking of size, I think this is probably the biggest drawback of the ShanHai series of pads. Personally, I just find them too small to use. Now if you watch this channel enough, you will know that I like a minimum of 500 by 500 or something around there. The issue isn't necessarily the width as much in this case, it's that the depth is only 400, that this is actually just too small. If size isn't an issue for you, then by all means don't worry about this. Now starting with the base, all the pads use extra soft Japanese pour-on at 4mm thick. It feels really plushy and definitely compresses down easily. The overall quality feels extremely high, and unlike other Chinese-made Japanese pour-on based pads like the Lamzu Energon Pro, all my units of the ShanHai series here are immediately flat out of the box and don't have any waviness to it. Now easily a top tier product in this quality aspect. The one exception is the pink Tang Dao here, right, the pink one. It has this glossy layer to the base. Now I don't know if this is just on the Tang Dao, meaning the black version is also like this, or if it is on all the pink versions of these pads. Nonetheless, the performance is the same as all the others here. I assume this has something to do with the production/heat treatment. Now moving into the stitching, the same level of excellence continues into the pads where they have thin below the surface stitching. And that was actually pretty surprising because I initially thought this was level stitching until I kept touching it, giving it a feel, using it, and then I'm pretty sure this is actually very slightly below the surface. Nothing else for me to comment on here. This is actually easier to accomplish on pads that are 4mm thick versus if you had to get level stitching on 3mm pads. Now, starting with each individual pad, from what I have been told by the community, these pads are EspTiger versions of artisan clones. So we can use that as somewhat of a reference basis. Now starting with the Lei Ling here, right, we can refer to this as Thunder. This is what I would imagine to be the Hayate Otsu clone, and it definitely is one of my 2 favorites of the series. If you guys know me well enough, you will know that I mained a Hayate Otsu for years before starting the whole peripheral thing. Now the Lei Ling here is somewhat textured, but only very slightly so. Probably one of the least textured pads that I've tried, and it certainly feels smoother than the Otsu. Now in addition to that, it actually has the best textured arm sleeve glide that I've tried to date. Now usually most textured pads don't glide too well with arm sleeves, but the Lei Ling here performs almost as if it's a smooth pad. So I'd put the sleeve performance rating around the same as say even a Saturn Pro. The surface feels on the faster side of medium speed, and it is definitely faster than a Saturn Pro. I reckon it's about the same as a P51 Mustang or an ES2, but with even better stopping power from the texture and extra soft base compared to the firmer Alpha Cell on P51 and ES2. I think the Otsu is a bit faster than the Lei Ling. Overall, this is probably the best pad for performance in the series, and if size isn't an issue for you, this is actually one of the best pads on the market. Now, next up, we have the Feng Ling, which I would imagine to be the Zero clone. We can refer to this one as Wind. It feels more like a GSR than a Zero, if anything. This is a cloth control pad, and it certainly feels the slowest of the bunch. Ever so slightly less than the Tang Dao, which we will talk about next. Now, the surface of this pad works with arm sleeves, but it still isn't silky smooth like a P51 on Energon Pro. It's just a passing grade. The speed of the pad is also slower than the Saturn Pro or Zero, and it reminds me quite a bit of the Soku Akai, which I reviewed previously. The surface itself is also a very soft weave, making the pad feel extra plush. Now, it really does just feel like a traditional slow cloth pad, but with quality cranked to the maximum. And if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, you enjoy those pads from 2010, back when it was just a piece of cloth, but you like that and you want a modern version that's cracked up, this is the one. Give it a try. Third, we have the Tang Dao. We can refer to this one as the blade or knife. Now, I can't actually say if this is supposed to be an artisan clone or not, but nonetheless, this is another weaved control pad. It feels slightly faster than the Feng Ling we previously mentioned, but the surface is also a bit rougher and it doesn't work with arm sleeves. Right, it reminds me a bit of the Super Beings Lab Memoria Pro. The same kind of controlled feeling, with a tinge of speed for micro adjustments, and the same situation where it doesn't work with sleeves, but it's actually perfectly fine on skin. It feels slower than the Saturn Pro and Artisan Zero, I will say. And overall, this is just a good pad, but I wouldn't say that it is anything particularly standout or special in the modern market. If you don't use an arm sleeve, you enjoy control pads, then this is a decent option. But there's also many other decent options out there. So up fourth is the Chuan Yun. We can refer to this one as the Cloud. This is my other favorite pad in the series, along with the Lei Ling we first mentioned, and this is probably the star of the entire show. The Chuan Yun is what I would imagine the Raiden clone to be. In this case, when I first tried the Chuan Yun, it was shortly after I tried an Energon. At the time, I was already blown away by the silky smooth, unrestricted feeling of the Energon, and if you guys have watched my Energon and Energon Pro reviews, or even saw the thumbnail, then you will know how much I like those. And then bam! The Chuan Yun just came out from out of nowhere, taking it up another notch again. The Chuan Yun is a fast pad. It's faster than the Lamzu Energon in my opinion, but less so than say the 4114 Aero. It also has that same silky smooth type feeling if anything. This might just be the smoothest cloth pad I have tried to date. The others have been telling me I need to try the Infinity Mice Speed V2, so hopefully that'll happen soon in the future. But yeah, this is even smoother than the Energon Pro. Though that doesn't really translate much in terms of feeling under your skates anymore. These pads are all so smooth that it feels no different to your skates. It's more so for skin and arm sleeves. Now, needless to say, this has perfect arm and sleeve glide. And if size isn't an issue, you enjoy smooth pads, I cannot recommend the Chuan Yun here enough. If size isn't an issue, this would honestly be one of my favorite pads of all time. Now, lastly, we move to the Kun Lun, which would be the Heian clone. The Kun Lun is a rough, textured, and abrasive pad that does not work with arm sleeves at all, and it also feels a bit rough on the skin. However, the textured feeling from the pad doesn't even translate that much onto your skates, right? You would think the pad is very rough and you'll feel a lot of feedback on the skates, but there's way less feedback on the skates compared to how you would imagine it to be versus when you first touch the pad. Now, speed-wise, the pad is fast, but not uncontrollably so, and it's certainly less than the 4114 Aero. The roughness and abrasion on the skin and the sleeve definitely causes the pad to probably feel a bit slower than it actually is, because your skin or your arm or your wrist doesn't actually move as much on the pad as it would on others from that abrasion, even if the skate pad interaction is actually faster. Now, if you play really high sensitivity and wrist only, maybe you wouldn't feel this to be the case, but in those situations, I would still recommend you to use another pad. All in all, it's a solid Heian alternative, but I personally don't rate both the Kun Lun here or the Heian very highly. They're not things I particularly like. So that brings us to the end of the ESP Tiger Roundup Part 1. stay tuned for part 2, and comment what pad you're most interested in trying. Maybe I'll send some of these out. Until then, see you guys in the next video.